Hello my fellow fish fans! Welcome to the channel. You might be asking yourself, why is there an empty fish tank sitting behind her? If there's a fish tank, there should be water in it. But that's what this video is going to be about. Before I break into it though, I do want to say, if you're new around here, consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a video, and it also helps me out a lot. When you hit that bell and you come to our video first, it makes YouTube go, whoa, Heidi's videos are popular, and then they promote us more. So if you don't want to miss a video, hit the bell. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about this fish tank. So behind me you'll see an aquarium stand that's actually housing my internet right now. We've got like the router and everything all hooked up over here. So obviously that's going to need to move if we're going to move this tank here. And we have my 55-gallon old saltwater tank that's got little bits of crushed coral all inside of it. It's just been sitting empty for a while now. So this is a 55-gallon fish tank. Originally it was my goldfish tank, and then before it was a goldfish tank, it actually was from my husband's classroom. He had a teacher that was there before him that had this tank, and I think that teacher had it as a saltwater tank. So he ended up bringing it home. It was actually a really nice gift for me for my birthday that year, I think it was. I don't know, I can't keep track of the fish tanks anymore. But I've been loving it. I loved this tank. However, if you guys have not been following along, because I know a lot of you guys are freshwater only, I'm in the middle of a saltwater build right now. It's taking a really long time because it's taking us much longer to get the stand and the sump put together than I had originally planned. That being said, that's not going to be the point of this video. Just know that eventually a 125-gallon saltwater tank that's 6 feet long is going to come live at my house. So that then begs the question, what do I do with this empty tank? Which is kind of an ongoing issue that I have. People, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when people find out that you're into fish, they just want to give you fish tanks. In fact, just 2 days ago, my husband's aunt texted me and said, I'm moving, do you want my old cichlid tank? Which I'm considering. It's a really pretty bow front tank, but that's not what this is about. But I've never kept African cichlids before, so I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think I should get that tank. I haven't decided yet. But I have a few fish tanks that are just kind of sitting empty right now, and one of them is this 55. I have a 40 breeder, a 20 long, and a 29 that are all just sitting empty. And the reason for that is when we moved into this house, there was a lot less space in this house than there was in the old house. Now, I know you guys understand that it's really easy to get multiple tank syndrome, and you start to fall in love with the idea of setting up tanks and the whole process involved in getting a tank set up, that it's easy to be like, okay, tank is set up, and then just kind of like leave it to its own devices and move on to the next thing. So when we moved to this house, I really wanted to avoid that. So when we initially moved here, the only two tanks I had set up were my two 55s. My 55-gallon discus tank, which at the time didn't have discus in it, but now it does. It's my freshwater tank. And honestly, because the saltwater build is taking a bit longer, that tank has gotten so much more attention, and I am enjoying it so much more than I was. I used to think that I didn't like freshwater as much as saltwater, but I realized it's just because saltwater was getting all of my attention. Now that it's like well planted and there's discus in there, I love that tank. It's so beautiful. But here's the thing, it's really hard to sit down and stare at an empty tank and know full well that there could be fish in it, right? So I'm sure you guys kind of relate to that, and my husband is much more tolerant than some people's significant others of me constantly having fish in the house. So anyways, when we first moved here, we had the two 55-gallons. We had the 55-gallon freshwater and the 55-gallon saltwater. And I broke down the 55-gallon saltwater because I was going to do the 125 saltwater, which I plan, and I want you guys to keep me to this, I plan on that being my last saltwater tank. No more upgrades after the 125. So that's part of the reason why it's taking so long to build, because I want to make sure we do it right, because I will not be upgrading the saltwater tank. I won't be. It's 125 and that's it. But this tank is just sitting empty. So part of the reason also why I only had two tanks initially is because our water is really bad. Now I also have My husband's 5.5 gallon tank is here for the summer because he's a teacher, and my daughter has her own 10 gallon tank, and then we have two 10 gallon saltwater quarantine tanks and a 3.5 gallon freshwater quarantine tank, which I need to update you guys on because at my last discus update, I had shattered my last quarantine tank. So all that is to say, I've got more tanks running. Most of them are for quarantine. But this is just sitting empty. And the problem is that my tap water in this house is terrible. Like Flint, Michigan, terrible. My water company is in the middle of being sued for, I don't know, at least the second time because of unhealthy parameters in our tap water. We don't drink our tap water. Our tap water comes out of the tap with ammonia in it, and it comes out of the tap at over 180 parts per million of nitrate. So 180 parts per million of nitrate, that's the top of what my test kit can test. So I know it's even higher than that. And when I've called the water company to complain, because they are such a terrible water company, they just are like, no, it's not. Ours is coming out at less than 10, so that can't be possible. And they refuse to come out here and test it. I know that they are lying because they are in the middle of being sued, and the last time they were sued, it was because of nitrate levels. And I'm going to go into mom mode for just a second here, and I just want to say, most of you will not have this problem, but that is dangerous. It's very dangerous. There's something called nitrate poisoning. This should be on my mom channel, but I'm just going to mention it. There's something called nitrate poisoning or blue baby syndrome where babies can die from having too high nitrates. That's why legally their nitrates aren't supposed to be coming out of the tap at more than 10, because if you have a baby that's under 6 months, they can't process those nitrates, and a baby that's under 6 months that might be, say you're giving water, which you really shouldn't be, but here in Arizona it's quite a common thing that people will give water, or more commonly you are mixing formula with that water, that could kill a baby. It's so dangerous. So I hate my water company, and I also hate my water company because it kills my fish. So because I have bad tap water, I run everything on RODI water. And you guys know if you run RODI water, that gets expensive. There's a lot of wastewater that comes with RODI water. And not only that, but if you're constantly filling a 55-gallon and 125-gallon, you're going to be running through those filters. On top of it, the RODI water comes out really soft. And so it limits the kinds of fish that I can keep. So for example, my daughter's 10-gallon tank, she wanted livebearers in there, she wanted platies. And initially I went out and I bought a platy that I was going to keep in her 10-gallon tank, and that platy ended up dying in quarantine because it just crashed in our soft water. So what I ended up doing is just replacing all the water in her tank and all the water in our quarantine tank with tap water from my parents' house, which is safe and healthy. And now I have a platy that's been through quarantine and that's doing great over there. I'll update you guys on that tank probably later on this week. But that has been part of the reason why I haven't wanted to fill this tank, right? Like, I can't be filling it with, I can't just constantly be running RODI water. It's gonna get expensive. It's frustrating. It takes forever to fill up. RODI, it is a little bit of a hassle, I'm not going to lie. But the way that I filled Rosalind's tank up with my parents' water, I thought maybe I could do that in this tank. And if I set the tank up right with really hardy fish, I could probably keep water changes down to a minimum if I had plants in here. So it got me thinking, would I maybe like to set this tank up again? I was at my local fish store, one of my local fish stores, I actually have many, recently, and I filmed a video for you guys. And in that video, I showed some fancy goldfish, and I was thinking about them. I was like, oh, I really miss them. And if all things were equal, I would probably set this tank right back up as a goldfish tank, just like it used to be, and have fancy goldfish in it. However, fancy goldfish, in my experience, eat every plant I put in this tank, and they are very hardy, but they're also very filthy. And so because they have a lot of waste, you have to change a lot of water. And so I want something that I wouldn't have to change a lot of water on because I don't want to be going in my RO unit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with this tank. Maybe fill it with my mom's water and do African cichlids, which I've never gotten into, but 55 is a little small, I think, for most Africans. I don't really know. Let me know in the comments, because it's like the one area of fish keeping that I've never tried, and that hasn't really appealed to me. But again, with African cichlids, in order to be successful with them, you have to kind of overstock, which means lots of water changes. So the other thing I was thinking is fill this tank up with water from my parents' house, which is nice and hard, and then just do like you see some people do like a breeding for profit tank. I'm not necessarily going to breed for profit, probably more for fun. I don't plan on selling them, but maybe just throw some Java moss in there and throw in like one female swordtail or platy or molly and just see what happens in it. And so that way the stocking level is kind of low, and she'll probably be pregnant when I get her. Some of those fish will survive, some of them won't, and see how the tank kind of stocks itself, and then just kind of let the plants do most of the work, and then occasionally fill it with my parents' water. And that way I think I could keep it really low maintenance. I wouldn't have to buy anything for it. The only thing I would have to do is make sure that I'm getting water from my parents' house. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think I should do with this tank? Do you think I should just leave it empty? I know some of you will say use it as the sump, but we already have a tank that we're going to be using as a sump for the saltwater tank. So I don't plan on using this for the sump. So if you guys had a 55-gallon tank just sitting empty, what would you do with it? Keeping in mind that my water is really bad. The guy at the local fish store, he lives out here too, and he told me that he keeps an Oscar, and that his Oscar tank, he just uses our tap water. But that makes me really nervous. You know, it is still dilution, but I would need a lot of plants, I think, for me to feel comfortable using my own tap water. So bearing that in mind, what would you guys do? Would you leave it empty, or would you figure out a way to shove fish in there somehow? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm leaning towards maybe like a swordtail or a platy or a guppy tank. I haven't decided, but I'm leaning towards some kind of live bearer and just super low maintenance, let it just take care of itself. So that's what I'm thinking. I also want to say, if you guys have not yet checked out your Fish Fan t-shirt merches, you can do that down below, teespring.com/fishfan. I will also have it linked somewhere on the screen at some point during this video in the iCard, and then I often have it linked in one of these two places. Also, hit the circle with my face on it, and if you haven't watched either of these two videos, you probably want to because they're pretty good. But first, let me know in the comments what you would do with this tank. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys!